Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RHAPpy Hour without Jordan Parhar. As you probably know, Jordan is busy at school studying for his bullying degree, and he's taking his bullying exams at the moment. But we do have the target of his bullying here with us. It's Alex Kidwell. Alex, how you doing?
I'm good. Jordan's going to have a hard time finding a place to teach if we keep up this kind of talk.
Yeah, I mean, oh, well. That's what you get for bullying, I guess.
Yeah. Bullies never win. It's true.
Well, no, they don't, because Brent got called out in the last podcast for bullying Arissa a little too much. How are you doing, Brent?
Taran, I will not be your boy toy. You will be my boy toy, okay?
Oh,
yes, I am the Ed asshole.
The toy, the boy.
That was all over Twitter, the Ed of asshole thing. It's pretty good, I think.
He is Pepe Le Pew. Yep.
Oh, yeah. We are live on RHAPisawebsite.com. We have the chat room open. You can chat in there. You can send questions to me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaran, and we will try to answer them on the show. We are here to talk about the latest episode of Big Brother Canada 5. It was a very exciting episode with lots of filler and birthday parties. And Mike Bell. Can you believe Mike Bell was here, Alex?
Mike Bell, yeah, guy, the guy with the voice, the guy. There he is. So great.
It was on our podcast with Kevin Martin that we talked about Mike Bell for the first time, and then we saw Kevin talking about Mike Bell on the show. That was really cool to me.
Yeah, foreshadowing. He's like, oh, Mike Bell competition, maybe that's Mike Bell. Yeah,
all I saw was Mike Bell, and I went, "Who dis?"
That's the point. All right, so
he does a good previously.
Oh yeah. In this episode, we see the fallout of nominating Dylan and Emily. How are they feeling at this moment in the episode, Brent?
At this moment, they're feeling really terrible. And I think they're talk about playing Big Brother backwards. I mean, like, wait until the nominations are in and then go talk to the HOH. Yeah. You know, like, that's brilliant gameplay, Dylan. He didn't want to feel like a punk by going up to them, making himself a bigger target. And then once the nominations are in, and oh, shocker of the century, it's them. What do you know? Then he's like, well, yeah, I'll go talk to you. And why did you do this, man? This is so unoriginal. Perfect to be insulting the head of household, the guy who could potentially save you with the veto plan. But no, Dylan doesn't think that way. He's just
and their strategy is like, oh, let's tell him who he needs to replace them with when they win the veto. Like,
yes,
you need to nominate Jackie.
And I've never ever seen in Big Brother where people say, you know, I'm going to win this veto, right? Like, I'm coming hard for this veto. Like it's a track competition or something. Give me a break.
Oh, how quickly you forget Jeremy Maguire, Brent. That guy was always promising.
That's true, yeah.
Guard your meat because I'm coming to eat.
And the wine. They need to guard the wine, clearly.
Yeah, because he'll drink the F out of it all by himself, and it's good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we get to this Mike Bell veto competition. We have Kevin, Karen, and Dre were the additional competitors, and obviously Mike Bell, the legend of Big Brother Canada, the greatest of all time. That he needs to be playing this game because he would obviously dominate. And he is hosting this competition. It's you have to match the furniture kind of competition, or whatever it is.
To win it.
Yeah. These ones, I don't know. How do you feel about this competition, Alex? Did you enjoy this one?
I mean, you know me. I mean, I don't really watch this for the competitions as much as a lot of people, but as far as they go, I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's good to have like a mix of kinds of things. You know, it's good that not everything is hanging on a wall or just, you know, doing the exact same kind of thing. So you need to mix up and get some memory in there. And that's what they did this time. I'm okay with how they go about doing it, I guess, because there's only so many ways.
I couldn't disagree with you more. Everything about this competition felt off to me because it was so awkward. I couldn't tell what was what. They didn't show all of the pictures up on the wall, so you didn't know what they were trying to match. You couldn't see what they were trying to match on the floor. Then he said something about the showroom, and I'm like, well, where is the showroom? Like, is the showroom like is that closer? Like, is that not up on the thing? I didn't. Visually, it was a miss. Like, I gave Big Brother Canada props because of that white Oreo competition they had earlier that was so visually appealing. You could see everything that was happening. The camera work was great. This one, it was like they were out to lunch and somebody else was doing it. I couldn't tell what was going on. I mean, could you see anything in this competition whatsoever?
I mean, you couldn't play along. You definitely couldn't play along.
It didn't help that like my stream was messing up at around this competition, but like when I started to describe the veto competition, I was like, wait a minute, I don't even actually know exactly what happened in this competition because it was so hard to follow.
You know what? If the Brick's willing to put up money, that's a good competition as far as I'm concerned. That's
all right. So
we need more of that. We need more people putting up money for vetoes and stuff because incentivize.
I will say that as a game show lover of the 1980s, I was all about the bonus round, so that was good. I was living for that. Good. Although, again, another miss. You couldn't see shit. Like, he was flipping up these things, and like he even held up the 2 winning cushions at the end, and one of them you couldn't even see if there was anything on it. It was
they all looked the same. Like,
yes!
Mike Bell had to be like, "No, you found it. Don't worry."
I thought he was trying to match cushions at first, and then I realized, like, oh no, he's just trying to find the you win cushion. Like,
Well, it is in this competition that Dylan informs us he has a mind. He's strategic, and he's won some chess championships.
What they don't know.
Well, hey, I didn't expect him to try to strike a deal. That was pretty. That was something.
And I like that they left that in. I really do, because they didn't have to leave that in. There were a lot of things that they yada through this episode, but that wasn't one of them.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. Like, who thinks about like Dylan thinks in those terms of like, if I offer him half of the prize, $2,500, then it's going to work like a mafia boss. Like Kevin is going to really be bribed by this right now when his life is on the line, his allies' lives are on the line. Like, who is actually going to buy this? And like, okay, the worst part for me was like, if you're going to bribe somebody to throw the veto, and especially if you're somebody that's like, I have $100,000 shoes at home, I don't need this money. Why are you only offering him half the price?
Right?
It's $5,000. You're gonna be a cheapskate and go from $2,500. Like,
that's the thing, though. Taran, everything about Dylan is totally transactional. That's how he. I mean, it sounds like I'm throwing shade at him, but I sort of admire this about him in a way. Like, he never considered, from Kevin's point of view, that Kevin could be in danger if Kevin threw the veto to Dylan, because Kevin is sleeping with William. So obviously, since they are, smacking spit back and forth, there's never a possibility that Kevin or any one of his allies could be on the block. Of course, we know that that's not true. Dylan's a complete idiot. He's just like, he thinks of things in very linear fashion. Like, if you're with somebody, obviously they're going to do what you want. And that's not how Big Brother works. Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts to me that he thought that would work. And it goes to speak to like his whole attitude this week with, Kevin winning the veto and him being pissed that he's not going to use it. And I mean, that's what we ultimately will get to at the end of this competition. But one thing I did want to point out, I love that Kevin went up against Karen. I just felt like that had to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Love that Karen picked him.
And yes, ultimately, Kevin wins this veto. Dylan and Emily are very upset with him. Dylan immediately tries to grab him and say, "You're gonna use the veto on me, right?" And Kevin's like, I don't know. I gotta talk to some people." He's like, "Be honest."
I also like how they showed Kevin wishing Karen luck and not Karen. Like, good luck, Karen. Screw you, Kevin.
You love that relationship. We need a Kevin Karen final 2. That's what we need.
Well, okay. So I pulled some things Karen said. I'll read some of them now because I think they're appropriate. Kevin asked Karen, "When's your birthday?" And she says, "I'm not telling you. I don't know you." and also at one point, Neta asks Karen, "Gosling or Reynolds?" And Karen says, "Anybody but Kevin."
I know, right? Oh my God, she's great. I love her.
It's so ridiculous.
She's so great, though. Oh my God, she's so great. She makes the feed so fun. Like, behind Aika and Neta, like, I really love me some Karen. She's so fun, and I really have a feeling she's going to be around to the end.
She's very passive aggressive to everyone. She's aggressive. She's mostly aggressive to Kevin. She's passive aggressive to Kevin and super aggressive to Kevin. But it's like, especially with Kevin, even when Kevin was like, Kevin's like telling stories and stuff, and Karen's just like, "Oh, you really like you must have seen that movie a lot of times, or it's just like always got like, even when other people are like, enjoying whatever Kevin's doing, she's like got a way of saying a thing that really emphasizes her distaste for Kevin.
By the way, I just want to say something really quickly because I saw some people tweeting about this, and I also agree with them because I was gonna tweet something and then I saw somebody else did. I love Kevin, but I really hate the way he claps. Like I hope that that you guys can see me. Like nobody else talk for a second. He claps like this, like he. It's like a machine gun. It's like really, and his hands are really tight together. It's like this, it just drives me to hell. I can't stand it. Stop it.
Oh man. I'm totally
He's amped up.
Notice that next time.
Yes, somebody make a gif of that.
Get the endorphins going in there. So he's really pumped.
Let's go.
I know, right?
Like a puppy dog.
So next up we see this birthday party, which Karen also has some comments about. She's not a fan of the weepiness. She says, "Suck it up, crybabies." Which is in reference to Bruno. He gets the card from his children. How did you feel about this, Brent?
Like, whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna throw shade on him. Like, I don't have any kids, and I'll never have kids because I choose not to. I know who I am. I'm a selfish person, and I would make a terrible father. So I choose not to have kids. But he has chosen to have kids, and he obviously loves them, and he's a great dad. So the minute I knew it was gonna happen. Like the fact that they left him for last. And by the way, the music chords changed when they got to Bruno as well. Like for Cindy and Dre, it was just like whatever. They got to Bruno is like some soft chords music with piano. It's like, oh, you know what's coming. And then I know, right? And then he opens it up and he's like, oh my god. Like stop. But they've been in a house for what, like 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. He hasn't won HOH, so he hasn't seen anybody. Fine.
Well, I love the chord change again, like the music change again when it starts to like it gets to like the like do 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 like goofy music, and you're like, what's gonna happen? Like somebody gonna do something weird, and then it just cuts to Karen complaining about them all.
You love Karen. I love it. You share my fascination with Karen.
I like Karen in small doses and like in quotes.
All right.
At times she does remind me of like how my grandmother would be if she had ever like played Big Brother, where it's like, man, I wish I could keep up with these competitions. It's just like always making comments to no one, just like out into space about like just lamenting her role as the oldest person in the house by 20 years. And
I love the fact that during the veto competition, they were showing Kevin and they were showing Karen, and the music for Kevin was like boom, 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 and the music for Karen was like dum, da, dum, da, dum. Like she's really moving slow.
Yes. So a lot of this episode is focused around Dylan and Emily, as I guess is understandable, but there's so much happening, and I do feel like we missed out on a lot of Aika. I mean, I guess every episode we're gonna miss out on a lot of Aika stuff if she's not the star of the episode. But we do go into this next segment where we find out about this plan or they come up with this plan to secretly try to backdoor Bruno by tricking Kevin into using the veto. Alex, can you tell us how this went down on the feeds?
Yeah, so I'm sure, like, wasn't it Karen who was originally talking about this? It was definitely like an idea they were floating around for a while. But, ultimately it's Aika that, ends up kind of like, Aika deciding that like, screw these people, I'm going to flip is really what incentivizes them to like, all right, fine, we can do this thing. Like, let's rally together. And you've got like Karen and Dre and William and Aika and Dimitri's like coming together seemingly and wanting to enact a plan where like, if William kind of seemingly by himself can convince Kevin that like, yeah, everyone wants Jackie out. Let's use the veto and let's get Jackie out. Then, we can convince Kevin to accidentally get Bruno on the block and then we can send him home. But, this was like a great plan in theory, but like, it just seemed like the kind of thing that like, man, if this idea could have come together on like a Thursday night when William had just won HOH, there would have been more options and more ways they could have gone about really solidifying some kind of backdooring Bruno plan. As such, I mean, it didn't really come together because it required them to really convince Kevin to take a huge leap of faith, and Neta and Bruno especially did a good job of kind of talking Kevin off the ledge, especially the morning of the ceremony itself, and just letting him know like, hey man, that's stupid. Like we like Dylan and Emily, we want to work with them, but that's
agree
not
with you.
really in our best interest.
Look, I agree with you in part that it would have been better if they had a plan. And I criticized them on the podcast yesterday with Rob that, William never had a plan, and that was part of the problem. On the other hand, William did play this well with Kevin to the point where I thought watching the feeds that Kevin was going to use the veto. William never really brought up Jackie too much. He kind of let Kevin lead him there a little bit. He never overtly tried to get to say, I really want to go after Jackie. Come on, let's go after Jackie. Like, it was never, he kind of said, well, I don't know if I should do that. And, that's not, I don't know. That sounds like really terrible. Like he let himself be talked into the idea that he could potentially put Jackie up on the block and make everybody happy. And you saw in the diary room, Kevin was so freaking happy. He's like, this is great. We can repair my relationship with Dylan. We can get Jackie out of the house. She's no worth to me. Dylan is the perfect shield. So I felt like they did, given the fact that they didn't have a plan, I felt like they did a good job. In fact, a very admirable job in terms of trying to get Kevin to use the veto. The problem was they had a leak. The leak was Aika. Aika, bitch, doesn't know which side she's on. I love her that she's playing this, double agent, triple agent role, but she sometimes does things, and then later on in the week, it's so frustrating because she'll say, why didn't I do that? Or why did I do that? She was the one who eventually spilled the beans to her alliance to say, no, that this is a trick. If you use the veto, Bruno's going to go up in your place, and you shouldn't do that. And of course, then Neta and Bruno piled on and said, hey, yeah, this is a bad idea. But if left to his own devices, Kevin would have used the veto here. I swear to God he would have. And that's why I don't think he has a very good read on the house.
Yeah, I guess. I also felt like, definitely that conversation they showed, William does a good job of selling it. But there was a conversation the next morning where William does a poor job acting, and Kevin's
that was terrible.
I remember because when he leaves the storage room, Kevin looks at the camera. He's like, yeah, I can't use the veto.
Yeah, but that was after Aika. That was after Aika.
True. It confirmed what he had already
got. So
he
already had it in his head. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, once he knew what to look for, he was able to find it for sure.
Yeah,
right. I imagine
that's kind of his MO.
Yeah, I imagine some of the show only watchers might be a little confused as to why Aika was pushing so hard to keep Bruno off the block in the last episode, and now is gunning for him to be on the block this episode. Brent, can you tell us why this happened, or is this Aika just being Aika?
Well, part of it's just Aika being Aika. On the other hand, that she's really fed up with Neta. And in fact, I'm trying to think I want to make sure I get things in the right order in terms of the way they happen. She's really fed up with Neta, and she doesn't like being questioned by the alliance. That because they see that she's really close to the other side, that her and Dimitri's are, and I'm going to say it Dimitri's for the rest of this time. I don't care what he says. It's her and Dimitri's are really close to Dre and William, and they see that. And obviously, the other thing is that Aika has made it known, sort of directly and indirectly, that she wants Emily to stay. Well, that's not what Neta and Bruno want, and Neta and Bruno are used to having their way. Kevin is with Neta and Bruno, so he's going to go along with that. They want to keep Dylan. Aika and Dimitri's want to keep Emily. And so they realize they don't have the votes. And so Aika, again, she's in this position where she basically has to do something for the good of the alliance that's not necessarily good for her. And her resentment towards those people who are causing that to happen is building. Again, there's so many things to talk about here. Her relationship with Neta, her relationship or lack thereof with Jackie. There's so many things that if one of these things could be repaired, I feel like Aika and Dimitri's could take control of the game. But as it currently stands, they're going to have to win one more HOH in order for that to happen.
Yeah, and then as you mentioned, she does eventually again change her mind and decide she needs to tell the other side of the house not to use the veto because she doesn't want Bruno to go up on the block. Alex, can you tell us why that happened?
Well, it's she's mad at Bruno because these moments come up where she's like, Bruno's sketchy, Bruno's lying to me, and she decides she's done with it. Aika is very concerned with loyalty, and that's the thing that keeps pushing her towards Dre, because Dre seems like a very appealing option, a very loyal person. And Bruno is the person that's gonna be dance around and answer a little bit and give you some half answers and stuff like that. So that kind of is the kind of thing that makes Aika want to flip. But then by the same token, she's got to worry about the factor of obviously she's worried she doesn't have the numbers. Cindy is obviously someone who really does a good job of talking to her and trying to repair the relationship between Aika and Bruno, to the degree she's probably the glue that's really holding them together at this point. And it's pretty tenuous, but it's still there.
As far as to why Aika did this, I feel like if Melissa Benoist ever left Supergirl, that Aika would be the perfect person to take her place, because Aika has a hero complex. She wants to be the hero to everybody. She wants to be the hero to Dre and William and those people. She wants to make them happy. And when they're in power and they've got decisions to make, she says, okay, I'm with you. Let's target Bruno. Let's get him out. When she's talking to the other side of the house, all of a sudden now she's with them. She's like, no, don't use the veto. Bruno's going to be the one to go up on the block. I want to save you. See what I did? Look at all the work that I'm putting in. Like, she's always the person that you've got to give to validate and give her credibility to the things that she's doing in the house. Otherwise, she doesn't have a lot of self-worth in the game.
Super.
She moves at such a high speed too. It's like, I mean, she was sketched out by Kevin, and that really drives her away. And then she decides Kevin, oh, now I think Kevin's really a trustworthy guy. Like, it's almost day to day. I mean, it really is day to day. It's almost hour to hour.
Intraday.
I mean, the degrees of, like, you know, I really do think, like, especially, you know, going into a double eviction, that, you know, whoever has gotten on Aika's bad side most recently is really who has to worry about it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because this has been happening since the beginning of the game. It's been day by day, Aika flipping back and forth to various different sides, various different people, and she's still there. Like, it's crazy that it works. And we kind of talked about this before, where it's like it kind of works because she fully believes it every time she talks to those people. But you know, who knows how long this is going to be able to last.
She's been playing better in the past, and I say that because in the past, she's had other shields in front of her that basically she could blame the failed plan on. Like when Dallas was trying to stay, Cass was the reason that there was a plan stirring it up. When Cass was on the block and in danger, Gary was the reason that the plan, you know, that there was a plan in place that eventually didn't come to fruition. Now it's seeming like Aika is the reason that there is a plan in the works to try to get Emily to stay, and Bruno and Neta don't like being told no. And one thing about Neta, she's got a little bit of an ego, so does Bruno for that matter, and they like the fact that they are currently in the best position in the game, and they want to keep it that way. So from their perspective, they want to keep Dylan in the house. They want to get rid of Emily. See, she seems shadier and more interested in her own game to them. She seems more willing to throw people under the bus, and Aika and Dimitris don't have the votes to save her. So they're looking like, and the thing is, they stuck their neck out, especially Aika, in terms of, she's tried to have it both ways. Like, I wish you guys would have told me that you really wanted to keep Dylan here, but they kind of already did tell her that, and she kind of just didn't want to listen. I feel like that well, that's spoiler territory for feeds, but I feel like they would do well to have a meeting and get some of this stuff out into the open, and just, like, let's be honest about our intentions here. The fact that we're in a big alliance doesn't mean that we all have the same motivations, but I feel like we can all still work together for the common good.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of standoff with the six, where Aika and Dimitris are constantly you know, canoodling with the other side, that are often against people like Kevin and Bruno. And then Kevin and Bruno and Neta, they have the other side of the house. And so there's this weird, you know, back and forth where they're saying, we want to keep our pawns and get rid of your pawns. And for the most part, Kevin and Bruno and Neta have been able to take out all of Aika's pawns, and Aika hasn't really been able to take out any of Neta, Bruno, and Kevin's pawns. So Aika's definitely feeling very, like, not appreciated, and she's feeling like she's losing this battle. And every time she wants to take a stand for one of her pawns, she realizes she doesn't have the numbers, because she is essentially on the outs of this 6-person alliance. But it's also the thing that's keeping her safe. So
yes, I was going to say that. Yes,
exactly.
I was just going to say that I know that Aika feels that she's in danger, and that, you know, the people that they're getting rid of are people that would never have come after her. On the other hand, she's in a great position in the house. If she would just shut up for a second, like, girl, like, realize the fact that, you know, if that side of the house, meaning the Dre, Williams, Karens of the world, if they win head of household, you are not on the radar at all. The people who are in danger are the Brunos and Kevins of the world. I mean, those are the people that are in danger if the other side of the house wins head of household. But if the Bruno side wins head of household, then Dre and William are in danger. Like, you're in a great position right now. It's like, shut up. But the fact that you keep yapping and you're blowing your top to people just makes people remember, oh yeah, we have to worry about you too. You're a bit shady. You're a bit untrustworthy. And now you could be moved to the front of the line. I do worry about Aika going into this double.
Yeah,
it's an interesting season, because you have, I feel like with a lot of seasons, you have at this point in the game, like 2 degrees of separation between someone and someone they'd want to target at least. You know what I mean? Like no one is like best friends with someone who's working with their enemy. But this season, there's a lot of that. It's like, you know, Neta and Jackie are getting closer, and like Aika's working with Neta, and then like Kevin and William are closer, but like Bruno isn't working with William at all. You know what I mean? Or like Cindy isn't working with William at all. And like Dre and William are working together, and William works with Kevin, but like how bad. So like there's just a lot of like the dynamics are much more intertwined. I think much tighter than I think in a lot of seasons at this point.
Yeah, I'm loving the dynamics. I've been talking about this before, and I obviously feel like that means there's probably going to be a twist coming soon that probably messes with it. I feel like there's some sentiment on Twitter too saying this, like, this is what happens when we have Big Brother Canada and they don't screw it up with twists. Like, we get some really good stuff often, and like, just don't mess it up for us. This is good. We like it. Come on.
Right. And the last twist they had was Backwards Week, and that basically was not really a twist. I mean, it was interesting to watch, but it basically gave the house exactly what they wanted anyway. I mean, if Bruno's side of the house had one head of household, they wanted to target Gary. That's who Neta wanted out. So, you know, Gary went up on the block because the house got to vote, and then somebody who they at least tangentially controlled in Dimitris was able to get rid of him. So, you know, it really wasn't like, I think about this season, and I don't feel like there's been that many twists. Yep. But there really was one just last week.
Yeah, well, it was a twist that made that week more boring. But it didn't like mess with the natural house dynamic, which I think is what's able to make this week so exciting, because there's still so much intermingling happening and so much natural, like, actual play happening. So
let's think positive, Taran. Let's think positive.
All right. So then
do you consider a double eviction a twist, Taran?
Oh, no, of course not. It's a regular game mechanic at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so next we get Dre talking to William. She really, really wants to make sure William is not feeling close to Kevin. She wants him to feel betrayed by him. She wants him to feel comfortable betraying him back. And so she tells him about this boy toy comment that is very upsetting to William. How did you feel about Dre's strategy here? Because I don't know if this is going to make the show, but I don't believe Kevin has actually ever called William his boy toy. So what did you think about this, Alex?
I mean, it doesn't bother me that she wants to make things up and try to use it against him, especially with Kevin, because it seems like it continues to work with Kevin. This is not the first time Kevin has been blamed for something he didn't do. And, you know, it's stuck, you know, despite anything Kevin might say. So it seems like, you know, it's not going to have much trouble when it comes to that. I think more so my issue with Dre and like her, you know, just strategic decisions. A lot of times she's kind of a dog chasing cars, where she doesn't know exactly what she's doing, and she doesn't know exactly what pieces she needs to put together a real plan. Because, you know, her problem is, like, if she wants to make a big move and go after a Bruno or somebody, then why are you like just going so far out of your way to alienate Jackie and make her feel like you hate her when, well, I mean, you do hate her, but like, it's just, you know, it's things like that set her back with this game, because, you know, at this point they need to try to rally numbers if they're going to beat the people who have been getting their way every week, like they talk about. But you're like almost intentionally dismissing some of the available numbers that are rapidly dwindling in the house.
Well, she's such a bad player because her number one ally, one head of household, this should have been a great week for her, but yet still she's basically not going to get her way. And why is that? Because she abdicated responsibility. She didn't stay up there in the HOH room when she needed to. She's bitching about the fact that Kevin is getting in William's ear, trying to get him to do things, trying to build a relationship with him. But I'm like, girl, where were you at? You were downstairs sleeping while they were canoodling up there in the HOH room. Like, she totally screwed this week up. I'm so mad at her. Then she acts all like verklempt about the fact that, well, I wanted to get Bruno up on the block and I totally screwed this week up. No, that wasn't the problem. The problem was you weren't up there from the beginning. Like, you basically, like, you crossed the finish line, but you forgot to go, like, there's another part of the race. Like, it's a triathlon, and she did the first part. They won. Yay, we won. Oh, yeah, I forgot there's still stuff to do. Like, they totally screwed that part up and dropped the ball.
So, Brent, if I told you that Alex has been calling you his boy toy for months now, How would you feel about that?
As I said yesterday on the podcast with Rob, like, I would love for Kevin or Alex or anybody to call me a boy toy. Like, I mean, that's so funny. Like, I mean, because that's all the relationship is. And William knows that. They're just kind of canoodling and kissing a little bit and a little bit more here and there. But I mean, that's all it is. It's within the context of the game. It's within the confines of the game. And outside of this house, you're probably just going to be friends. I mean, it's not like you're ever going to live happily ever after, but the fact that William seems offended by that is ludicrous to me. Absolutely ludicrous. And in this whole boy toy comment, which, you know, I know they talked about it on the show, but there were some things that happened after the veto ceremony, which I'll just go ahead and say right now because they're not really spoiler related. But like, William just got, you know, more mad about the fact that he supposedly called him a boy toy. He confronted Kevin about that. Kevin said, "I would never say anything like that." Of course, we know Kevin really would, or I don't know. Kevin said personal attacks don't belong in this game, but yet he does say to us in the diary room that he's willing to do anything to further his game. So I feel like those two things, I guess they can coexist, but like if he had called William a boy toy, which by the way, Emily was the one spreading that rumor, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I honestly, I feel like Kevin talks a big game in the DR in terms of like his heartlessness. But I think he really cares for William, and I think he'd be upset if he hurt William. Yeah. Like I think the TV version of Kevin is a lot more like cutthroat and strategic than I mean, obviously more strategic than the actual Kevin, but like definitely more cutthroat than the actual Kevin in the house, which is interesting. And so like, in terms of Bruno going up on the block, would this have been a good move for Aika? Should she have stayed the course and tried to get Kevin to follow through with this, Alex?
For Aika, I mean, I think it probably it's so tough to say. I mean, I think probably because Bruno is gonna, you know, turn on her soon, if not immediately. So I think, you know, a move needed to be made. I think you look at the HOHs that have happened. Demetrius has won 2 of the 4 HOHs at this point. And, you know, they took out Cass and Gary, who were amenable to working with them. So, yeah, you have to do some kind of damage control, or, you know, Neta and Bruno and Kevin and Cindy. Like, it seems too obvious that they're going to steamroll you. So I think like now is the time probably to try to do something like that.
Yeah, but you have to spin it forward. Like, you know, getting Bruno up on the block was only part 1 of the plan. Getting him evicted, that's part 2 of the plan. And in order to get Bruno evicted, you're going to need the votes of Aika and Demetrius in a 9-person voting block. 5 of those people have to come together. They have 3 of them, but they're going to need Aika and Demetrius in order to do it. And I feel like that if you like spin it forward, like they're going to, Ike and Demetrius are going to have to own to Neta, to Kevin. Yeah, we're voting out Bruno to save, you know, Dylan. And are they really going to be willing to face them and say that? I don't think Aika would be able to do that. I really don't. So I think that your other course of action is to save Bruno and let him be on the block. Let, you know, William take the fall for this, and then save him with your votes and say, we're not letting you go anywhere, and, you know, bring Bruno back to your side. That may be the better course of action.
And that's the thing that's tough, is because like with the information Aika has, she feels like, you know, the 4 of Cindy, Neta, Bruno, and Kevin are, you know, obligated to be loyal to her and Demetrius if they don't have Dylan and Emily on the side. Like, she really has been concerned with them replacing her duo with that extra duo that's just kind of hanging out there for Neta and Bruno to pick up. So in getting out one of either Dylan or Emily, she does kind of mitigate that threat to a degree.
Yes. So ultimately, Kevin does not use this veto, and we see in the DR him saying something felt fishy, something felt off. He felt like his allies were in danger, which makes him seem very smart and very like he really predicted this. Man, how did Kevin know?
Read him like a book.
Yeah, man, Kevin's just so good at this game, isn't he?
Weren't you interested in how he basically seemed like Bruno from Big Brother 3 when he didn't use the double veto? Like, you know, he was like, you know, I'm sorry, Canada, I really wanted to do this. Like, I mean, he seemed apologetic in the DR to me, to a point where he felt like maybe he was letting the viewing audience down by not using the veto. You could definitely tell that. And I thought that was interesting that they kept that in.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's weird because they are portraying Kevin as being heartless, as potentially playing William, and we're seeing, I think, what we're supposed to be seeing as like this likable William, as sort of like, you know, sticking it to Kevin a little bit. But then we're also seeing this from Kevin, where it makes Kevin look good, and they're letting Kevin be the person that's like, man, I know you probably wanted to see this, but I felt like I was being tricked and I saw through it, which is a very favorable way to very favorable way to portray this for Kevin. So they're definitely not ready to cut their golden boy loose yet with Kevin.
Really hedging their bets on that one.
Yeah. But I think unless you guys have anything else from this episode, we should probably move into the feeds.
Yep.
Sure.
All right. I don't have a spoiler song, so just spoilers. Don't listen anymore. Yeah.
They'll put in the music.
Yeah, you can. I did a dance that's like a GIF on Twitter now. It's really embarrassing. All right.
Start making up brands to do commercials for. That's fun.
Yes, Brent is doing it right now. All right. So into the feeds. Dylan and Emily still up on the block. Who's gonna go home, Brent?
Dylan's gonna go home unless something changes, which I don't see it changing. And my only question at this point is: it going to be 5-4, or is it going to be 9-0? I think it's going to be 9-0. I really do. I feel like it's going to be 9-0 at this point. I feel like the house is going to come together, and that's not good for Bruno and his team. I feel like that he would like it if some people voted against, and maybe Karen throws a hinky vote. I don't, hell if I know. But basically, the house is going to come together and keep Dylan at this point, and that's gonna make Dylan less angry with the Aika and Dimitris of the world, I feel like. So I'm still interested to see, and I know Alex was on with me last night, poo-pooed the fact that Dylan is going to go after Kevin. He's still saying that today. And I know that, we still have one more day, but he's still pissed at Kevin for keeping him on the block, for winning that veto, for not taking his deal. Now, once Emily's actually out of the house and they announce a double eviction, and if he pulls a Corey and wins head of household, who knows? But I still am wondering whether or not, because he was also had a conversation, and I'm all over the place, but a lot's been happening on the feeds. Dylan had a conversation with Karen earlier today that was very interesting, and Karen was basically trying to pull him in, and he sees that he's being used as a pawn. Like I said yesterday, the pawns have woken up, at least part of them have, and they don't like being used as a pawn. It's like you're a prostitute and you realize you've been used. He doesn't like being used, and he realized that he's been used by his alliance at this point as essentially a placeholder for the bigger targets, which are the Brunos and Kevins of the world. So I feel like there's a possibility that he could be not as stuck to their side of the house, meaning Bruno and Neta, we'll call them the Netas, because that's what the Twitters call him. He will not be as stuck to the Netas as maybe some people think he would. Although later on he had conversations with Neta where it seems like he's going. He's all over the place. Like, talk about Aika
with Dylan right now.
It's true. I'm just trying to get everything in, because if I don't say anything, then people come at us. And they say, well, why don't you talk about this conversation? Why don't you talk about this conversation? So I'm just trying to let you guys know that Dylan has been all over the place as far as his intentions go.
Yes, and just to be clear, at first you said Dylan is going home. I think you meant to say Emily is going home and Dylan is staying. Emily is going home, and we're concerned about, where is Dylan in all of this? Because at first, Dylan wanted to go home, but now he doesn't want to go home. And, at first he was like, I'm definitely going after Bruno and Kevin, but now he's been talking to Neta, and it seems like he's more favorable to that side. At first he was sleeping with Emily in her bed, and now she's not sleeping with him anymore. These are very important questions. Will he sleep in her bed again? I don't know. It's very hard to figure out.
Well, he's hoping for alcohol delivery, Taran. That's his saving grace in his mind. So
he exposed for the first time today to Emily that there's a part of him that wants to stay, and that really woke her up. She was like, oh shit, like really, like the whole reason that I felt safe is because you've been saying that you wanted to go home, but now there's a part of you, even a smaller, he said the bigger part of him wants to leave, which is, by the way, is a total lie. He's just telling her that to save face. She realizes that she's in girl, you in danger now.
Yeah, Emily's freaking out, and that's why people do blindsides. That's why they happen, because it's like you are literally leading a lamb to slaughter. And if you start riling the lamb up and letting it know you're about to murder it and showing it the knife and doing all kinds of stuff, the lamb's going to start flailing and freaking out. It's much harder to murder a lamb when all that's going on. So
What just happened? Where did that go?
Yeah, I do not co-sign that analogy.
oh, come on now. It's the same
What are we
thing.
on? We're on Survivor murdering baby goats. Is that what's happening?
Oh, Emily is a baby lamb on this season. She's just totally strategically, veal.
Yeah. Strategically veal. I like that.
Strategically veal.
So yeah, but Jackie did talk to her today, and Jackie was like, I'm voting to keep you, Emily. Dylan is abdicating. Like he doesn't really want to stay. And Emily was like, oh my God, it's so nice to hear. I'm so touched.
Lies. She's lying.
I do think it could potentially still shift, right? I feel like Cindy, if like Cindy ever decides like I want one or the other, she doesn't seem to care much. But like Cindy is like the definite vote that, tips the apple cart one way or the other, because like a lot of people don't seem to care too much, and nobody wants to like be too adamant about, in the six who are really, still controlling the decision, because everything, even on the quote unquote other side of the house at this point is kind of trickling from Aika and Dimitri's. They realize they need them to make anything happen, really. So they're kind of banking on that. But yeah, I mean, if Cindy decides that she's closer with Cindy, pretty soon is going to have to choose, I think, between Aika and Neta, because this is like coming to a head to a point where she's having conversations with Aika, and, Neta is not privy to what she's saying. Like Aika's like bad mouthing Neta to Cindy, and then Neta's bad mouthing Aika to Cindy. And it's like, you can only juggle these balls for so long before things fall apart and you have to do something. So it's going to be interesting. I think, as of right now, definitely it looks like Dylan is going to stay. But if Cindy were to all of a sudden feel like Emily is better for her game, I think she's like the one person who could turn the tides more than anyone.
I think that's possible. I personally don't see it happening, especially with the limited time frame. They basically got one more night to change it, and I don't think there's a big push to change it. I think, in fact, a lot of the people on the other side of the house, as Brent was saying, are kind of coming around to like, all right, well, I think we just have to let Emily go.
Yeah, like William really wanted Dylan out, and even he is like kind of over it at this point. Like, whatever. I could not be made to care.
And it's so like the confusing thing, I think, is that I haven't seen Dylan be completely honest with anybody at this point. Ever since he had a conversation with Neta where he admitted that he wanted to stay, and Neta gave him reassurance that she was going to help keep him, he hasn't been completely honest to Neta. He hasn't been completely honest to Emily. He hasn't been completely honest to Karen. I don't know where he's leaning, because he's lying. He's at least leaving some things out to everyone. He's telling Karen, I want to go after Bruno, I want to go after Kevin, I want to go after Neta, all of those people. And he's telling Neta, like, I really actually want to stay. And he's telling Emily, I kind of might want to stay, but they haven't told me anything, so I'm not sure. So like, it's like, I don't know where he lies. Do either of you have a guess about this?
I mean, I know, like, I feel like Brent, you think like, I mean, obviously right now it seems like he's thinking Kevin, and I get that. I think, something would have to change, but I feel like if he were to win HOH in the double, and he is probably the biggest wild card about like who could win in the double, about what they're going to do, it's hard for me to not think he just reverts to his hatred of Dimitri's that is long standing. I mean, like, that's an easy guy to put up. And also, if you just lost your showmance, like, it's very easy to see Dylan being like, all right, well, screw you. I'm going to put you up with your showmance and see how you like it, because I don't like you, Dimitri's. Like, I think it could come down to that.
Yeah, I think a Dylan HOH win in the double could be the most exciting potentially thing.
Everyone would be scrambling.
Everyone would be at him from all sides, and I don't think he has any loyalties after Emily leaves. So it could go
free
anywhere.
agent.
It could go, and it wouldn't even be like strategically sound either. Like, he could just like throw two completely random people up on the block. It could be total mayhem.
That happened in Big Brother 16, right? Wait, I think it was Steve the HOH when he did that, when he threw a couple randos up there, and we were just like, what? Like
17, you mean?
17, where he got Jackie
sorry, 17. Yeah, don't yell at me.
We got Jackie out. That's funny that like that would be, if this in this double, that scenario would be if someone got Jackie out.
Well, like at least Steve had like some strategic end to that, right? Like he was just trying to get out like the least offensive.
I know.
Like,
but it was such a. We were like, oh my god, we can't. We had to do a podcast that night. And we were like,
yeah. It seemed incredibly random.
Yeah.
Because nobody.
If you weren't watching the feeds, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that would be like if Kevin won and got Karen out, and we're all like, yeah.
Yeah, they look. They look like they're friends on TV.
I could see it where like Kevin puts up like, I don't know, Karen and somebody. It's like easy, but like it just seems like with the double, especially that they seem to like they know it's a double. Like this is like the time for a big shoe to drop. There are a lot of seasons where it doesn't necessarily feel like the time. It was a good move for Steve to really like fade back into the background. He was able to take out somebody that wasn't really loyal to him, and then not make any enemies really in doing so, because a lot of people, nobody was feeling like they were ready to like give up their game for Jackie. So that worked out for him. But I just think there's hardly anyone you see on like the board right now who would win HOH and not feel like, okay, I need to take a big swing here, either at like Aika or one of her close people, or Dre and William together, or Neta and Bruno together. Like there's just, it seems like a heavy hitter is probably in trouble.
I was just going to say that the thing that we're kind of burying the lead here, but Aika and Neta have been at each other's throats, and Aika is totally, almost assuredly close to done with the 6, and she has told Dre finally. I think I said on this podcast last night that she hadn't told Dre yet about the 6. Well, she did. She told him about the 6, and so that cat's out of the bag. And I'm very curious to see. Dre's like, well, we just need to declare war, and Aika's like, well, it's been declared. Well, it really hasn't. Like they're still sort of making nice with everybody, and Cindy is sort of the mediator and the glue between them. Cindy wants everybody to come together. Like, why can't we all just be friends? That's basically like Cindy at this point. But I do agree with Alex that I feel like she's gonna have to make pick a side, because she's trying to have it where if their side of the house wins HOH, or somebody who doesn't like Aika and Demetrius, like say Dylan, he only puts up one of Aika and Demetrius. Like she wants to make sure that it's not Aika and Demetrius on the block. She wants it to be like if they win, Aika and Dre, or like Demetrius and William or somebody like that. Because those are the two head of households who put him up.
Yeah, and most recently she's been talking about, I mean, obviously she's still very close to Cindy, so any plans she would have on flipping would be to a flip against Neta, but not necessarily against Cindy. And, the more they talk about kind of the fact that, William really did Kevin a solid this weekend. He established some trust with Kevin in, Kevin not using the veto and, all this stuff. And, they hang out a lot now. They're very close. Obviously, we've seen that on the show. So, I think Aika is now like, looking at possibilities that involve trying to pry Kevin away from Bruno and Cindy away from Neta, and get everyone to kind of like target those two big players.
Yes.
And maybe work something out where, Kevin and Cindy are amenable to the idea of moving on in this game without Bruno and Neta, which probably not in their best interest this early.
Yeah, this early, I would agree with that. I do like the fact that Aika's sort of waking up to the fact that Dre and William, they're really loyal. They're like, they will go down with the ship, and that's the kind of people that she needs right now. She doesn't want anybody who's flippy floppy, who kind of goes all over the place for self-preservation. She needs soldiers right now, and Bruno's kind of realized that she feels like Aika is trying to like build an army against them, which is kind of like what's happening. I mean, if you look at like Aika and Demetrius and William and Dre and Karen, and if they tried to keep Emily, I mean, that would be enough people to effectively take control of the house, or have the numbers at least, and Bruno would be in severe danger. Again, I said, I know that they don't have enough people to get, to make whatever they want to happen for the first part of the double, but for the second part of the double, only 8 people are voting, and they have a solid 5 on that side that are all basically working together. I'm talking about Aika's side. So if they can get control of that HOH, they can make whatever they want to happen.
Yeah, and I like the instinct from Aika, because I feel like Aika is in a really tough spot right now, where if she goes against the 6, then she's in a lot of hot water, because she's always going to be.
You're talking about with Dylan and Emily?
I don't know, just in general, like,
okay.
Like moving forward into next week, like where she's positioned in the house. She needs to be able to pull Cindy in, which is why I was like, what are you doing, when she just basically shoved Cindy away after having pulled her in? But she is trying to work Cindy back in yet again. And she is also trying to work Kevin. I don't think that's going to work. I think Kevin is blindly loyal to Bruno, and I think that's in his best interest. I think he has basically nowhere to go if he goes with Aika. But at least she's trying, which I do appreciate to a large extent. Alex, you mentioned that Cindy is kind of like the glue, or I think Brent maybe mentioned Cindy's like the glue.
Yeah.
Holding the six together. I saw on Twitter somebody say something like she's like a child in like a divorced parent household, where she's like trying to run back and forth, like keeping the peace between two people that just hate each other.
It's so true too, because they had like a meeting among the six, like, you know, 2 a.m. last night, and literally everyone pretty much like voiced some degree of opinion. Cindy sat there the entire time with like, they were all still like wearing boxing gloves from the thing, and like she's sitting there like covering her face the entire time, did not speak in a word, just like listened to the conversation. And like, you forget she's even there. Like, she just pretty much blends in with the furniture, and these discussions happen around her. She takes in everything. And then, yeah, like Aika then goes off and she's talking about her issues with Bruno, and, you know, she listens to that. And then she goes, talks to Bruno, listens to him talk about his issues with Aika. And then she's like taking in all this stuff. And yeah, she's like the person who's conveying information. Like, Bruno has his interpretation of what Aika thinks because that's what Cindy has told him, and vice versa. So she is controlling the flow of information between the two fracturing sides of the six.
Yeah, she is controlling the flow of information, and she's not being totally honest with everybody about what she's presenting to them. So I still feel like that she's still trying to keep Aika safe from Bruno. But I'm curious from you guys whether or not you think, like, let's just call it Bruno HOH for tomorrow night. Does he put up Aika and Demetrius?
I mean, I think he would have,
because he's been saying it.
I think he would have yesterday. I know that Cindy has been putting in work to try and repair his relationship with Aika. So I don't know how far that's gone in like today.
Right. I also think it really depends what Neta wants. I mean, Neta, it seems like, wants to take out William or go for William and Dre. She's talked about targeting William, but if she feels like, you know, if she increasingly feels like she can't work with Aika, and then she decides to really push Bruno in that direction, I could see him.
They've barely talked today. Her, and I'm talking about Neta and Aika, at least up until I came on, started watching Survivor, and then Big Brother Canada. So
yeah, Neta was telling Dylan, like, I hope you appreciate the work I put in this week to keep you, because Aika won't even look at me now. Like, yeah, that's
yeah. You know, like, I know that Bruno was talking about, like, he was talking to Neta and he was saying, I'm just going to put them up if I win.
Right.
And Neta was saying, yes, I think you should. So I definitely think it's a big possibility. But like I said, with Cindy trying to repair that relationship, Cindy's basically given up on repairing the Neta Aika relationship, at least at the moment.
And so has Aika. Aika's given up on trying to repair the Neta. She's like, well, I'm just going to work with Kevin and Bruno and Cindy and try to repair that relationship and see if I'm able to get through the game with that. Like, screw Neta. Like, I don't care about her. I don't have to work with her. I don't have to talk with her. But if I can have these people in my corner, at least for the time being, I'll be okay. Sorry, didn't interrupt.
And this is what she should have been doing all along, I think, because Neta is basically by herself, whereas Kevin and Bruno and Cindy are all sort of linked to each other. Neta has always been the person that's just kind of like in with them by default, because if Aika is against Neta, then she's also against the three of them. So she needed to try and pull them away from her, away from Neta, instead of trying to be with Neta and then trying to be like, you know, back and forth with Neta and then back and forth with Kevin and Bruno. These are the people she needs to be targeting, and targeting in the sense of like targeting, like, I need to be friends with you.
I need to be friends with him, right?
Yeah. And even if she can't completely win them over, at the very least, convince them, I have no interest in you. I'm only after Neta. And like, the rest of us are still good in the six. It's just Neta I have a problem.
She can get them to stay their hand for a week or two. Like, if she's, you know, maybe not best friends with them, but she's good enough with Bruno, and, you know, by extension, Cindy's trying to smooth that relationship over with Bruno and Kevin, where, you know, they're like, we don't really trust you. We don't really like you, but we're not going to target you yet. Like, I feel like if she could just buy herself a week or two where they go after William and Dre, or put some amalgamation, but I gotta stop using that word. Sorry. Some combination of Dylan, Jackie, somebody, a placeholder, Karen up there. If they can make it through a couple of weeks, I feel like that their work will have paid off.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Cindy's position is telling. I was trying to go through earlier and look at like for targets for double eviction, like who are the 3 or 4 most, people that everyone would be most likely to put on the block. And Cindy is not on like that list for anybody. Cindy's the one person I think there's no scenario where she possibly goes. Like I think there's a fluke where everyone else could potentially go, but Cindy is absolutely unequivocally going to be here next week. And that's something that really says something about kind of the game she's playing, the way she's managed to stay, lying low while still being a big part of the majority and the decision-making. She's not alienating anybody with the way she's gone about it. Neta and Aika have really, come to a head in terms of they're both very vocal in what they want to happen and who they want to see go home. And it's created a rift. Like that's just been, kind of further, chasming isn't a word, but further developing each week. So yeah, I mean, Cindy has managed to, keep herself out of all of that. And she's even like, I know she's talked about like in an effort to try to get people away from the idea of targeting Aika, like the idea of, maybe doing 1-1 instead of putting up Aika and Dimitri, doing like Dimitri and Dre or, something like that, just pitching something that's an alternative. And I think personally, like, I think Dre and Aika or like, Dimitri and like, there's just some really interesting combinations that could potentially, go up on the block this week where you have people who are working together who would have like opposing viewpoints on who they would want to see go.
Yeah. So speaking of Aika, there's something I really want to talk about because she came up with this plan where she wanted to fake cry to Neta in the HOH room. And this is a very like interesting like hour or so of feeds because while this was happening, there's also another interesting conversation with Bruno and Dre that I want to get to as well. But so Aika basically just like bawled out to Neta saying, "I'm so sorry. I've never said I'm done with you. I love you. I need you in this game. I feel so bad about everything I did." She was like fake. She was pretending to cry before she like in preparation for this. Brent, were you watching this? Were you enjoying this?
Yeah, we talked about it last night. Like I liked the aftermath of it when they were both like walking out of the room going, "That was the biggest waste of time ever." Like that was like they were, I think maybe Aika was a little bit more sold on her acting abilities than Neta was. Because I think Aika thought that maybe she repaired some of the damage and she really didn't, and Neta wasn't buying any of it. So it was interesting to watch. I love the fact that she's such a diva because she's like, I call her a diva Aika because she just goes, she knows the cameras are on her. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go in the room, I'm gonna practice crying. Like, where's some onions, and then she walks into the room with Neta. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I love you. We go way back, blah, blah." Yeah, it didn't work. That's all.
Aika's one of these people, and I know she's not alone. There are other people out there, but I'm pretty sure Aika's one of these people who aren't aware when they're rolling their eyes. And so like, she's rolling her eyes very hard, like just powerful eye roll, and you're staring her in the face. It's like, it's pretty hard to say like, no, totally, I get you, I'm with you. And it's like, I just watched you roll your eyes. I know what that means. That's a universal thing. Like, you just can't.
And there are some
talk
people
your way around that.
There's some people on Twitter who are like, why can't these two amazing queen bees work together? I've seen this, many people have tweeted this, and I'm like, I agree with everyone who's answered them and said, look, they are queen bees, but that's the reason they can't work together, because they're used to having their own way. They're used to getting what they want. There was never any universe where these two were going to go to the fight. It was never going to be an Aika Neta final two. Come on. Like, that's fan fiction.
Even when the conversation is genuine, it's like, you misinterpret, like, was Aika, because Aika rolls her eyes so much. It's like, oh, was Aika rolling her eyes there? It's like, and Neta, like, makes,
Neta rolls her eyes.
She's got a very sharp tongue as well. So
yes.
She'll make like little quips, and it's like, oh, was that a slight at me? Like, sometimes you don't even know. And it's like, yeah. So there's even been conversations that were genuine where they both walk away, and it's like that. I don't trust her at all. That bitch, like, I can't deal with this. Neta has been getting a bit of a mean girl rap in the house. And first of all, it started outside the house with people not liking her and people cheering when she lost to HOH. And now I hear people in the house like Aika and Emily and some other people saying that she's a bit of a mean girl. Like, I can't, who was it that said that, I've seen mean girls before, but Neta takes it to a totally new level. And I'm like, really? That's those are some strong words about Neta there. Yeah, well, Emily definitely felt picked on at like that party that they had because the next morning she was very much like upset about it, and Neta had to apologize. But up until that point, and obviously being on the block and them not really, going out of their way to protect them has been a factor too. But up until that point, it seemed like Emily was really kind of sticking to Neta pretty closely. And that's gone. Like Emily is kind of like her only friend is Karen anymore. Emily walked into a room that today straight up asked Neta, like, "Are you voting to keep me?" And Neta just ignored the question entirely and just like continued talking about something else. Like that's always a bad sign. So yeah, I mean, really, it's Jackie who's taken that position of being like stuck up Neta's butt, which is like, if you're a new player who has no clue what you're doing, if you're a minnow, just like floating among all these sharks, like there's worse places to be, I suppose.
It's funny because Karen is essentially like performing the role of like turning Emily and Bruno again, or Emily and Dylan against.
I do that too. I there's so many players, and I feel like their names are similar because like a lot of them are 2 syllables. So I frequently screw them up when I'm talking. If I ever screw it up on a podcast and I start talking about somebody and I say the wrong name, just correct me, please, because I don't look like an idiot. Yeah.
All right, we'll make sure to not correct you so you can look like an idiot.
Like you did when I said Bruno and Dylan or Aika, whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But luckily for Neta,
I did it last night with Rob and Alex, and I went back and watched the podcast, and no one corrected me, and I'm like, God, I look like an idiot.
They did it on purpose.
Yeah, no, right? They were so nice.
So the other conversation I want to talk about was the Bruno Trey conversation, because there was this interesting conversation they had where they were like, can we trust each other? Like, can we give each other information right now? And Bruno was trying to subtly hint to Dre, like, there's somebody who's running back and forth, pitting us against each other. I think we should be really wary of that person. And he's obviously referring to Aika, who is the rat. And Dre is like eating all of it up. She's like totally into this. She goes upstairs to talk to Aika after Aika does her crying thing to Neta. And she goes, I think we've got Bruno. I think he's against Neta. I think he's talking about Neta.
Freaking terrible. Oh,
and it's funny too, because he had the same very vague conversation with Karen where they're like, there's one person. Like,
and
you know who I'm talking about?
Cindy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Cindy,
like,
yes.
I don't think they're talking about the same people. They're all talking about different people. But nobody wants to name names. So it's just like, there's the one person. It's just the one person who's the problem. It's like, somebody has to go every week. There's going to be a person who's a problem every Thursday. What are the odds? Someone else became the problem. It's like they infected them. Yeah, it's like that's what we said about like Audrey, and then Audrey left. It's like, oh, Audrey must have like done something to Shelly. It's like, no, this is the game. This is how it works. It's just so funny to watch people like rationalize why somebody needs to go, because at the end of the day, I mean, with this game, you don't have reasons to send anyone home. You just have to make them.
And at the end of that conversation with Dre and Bruno, they tried to make a deal where, like, I want to target you, you want to target me. And I think Dre was like, well, what about William? Well, what about Aika and Demetrius? Like, she's like adding people. It's like whatever deal they made was not worth the paper that it was printed on. It was, it's totally fruitless.
Because when she talked to Aika about the conversation, she's saying, I think she's talking about Neta. I think Bruno's ready to turn on Neta. Aika was like, oh, crap. He's trying to out me right now. And she was like, no, he was talking about me. You're screwing me up here. And Dre was just like, I do not believe I am right in this. I have a feeling.
She's so freaking terrible. God, people were like a week ago, people were like, Dre, Queen of Big Brother, love you. I think maybe even I on this podcast said,
people still love Dre.
Oh, I love Dre. Well, I love her because she's a big dog hunter. Like, I love the fact that she's willing to go in the diary room and say something, but she doesn't know what the clue she's doing.
Yeah, and so Dre,
she's the Jackie of this season. She's the one who's just like, I'm going to take out big targets. And hear about it, and it never comes to fruition.
So Aika storms out mad about this conversation that Dre had with Bruno, and then Dre goes to Bruno again to be like, all right, I'm going to confirm that this was a good conversation. God. And just immediately, like, all the work Bruno was doing in the prior conversation, it seems like he's just over it now, and he's just like. Whatever. Let's just make a deal between us, and we'll keep each other safe.
Let's make a deal. Yeah.
And Dre was like, okay, and William too, and Aika and Demetrius, and she just like the look on her face was just like, damn it, oh man, Aika was right, I screwed up. Yep.
And they showed it. The camera. The great part was the camera showed her realizing that she screwed up. Like you saw her like sulking, being like, "Oh my god, I'm a terrible player. Oh my god."
All right, let's get into some questions. Just a few of them. We can wrap it up a little bit soon. From Edmo, is the season 3 alliance the tightest / strongest alliance in the house? Alex, what do you think?
I would say the French Connection is the tightest / strongest in that, like, I don't think Dre and William would ever turn on each other, but I think the season 3 alliance is the most powerful alliance in that the scenario that would have to bring about them turning on each other is unlikely and would probably involve 2 of them on the block. And they really are in a position to dominate and kind of control the game with the way they have positioned themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the French Connection is obviously tighter, but at the same time, they're kind of a pair. And pairs, can you really consider a pair to be like an alliance?
Right. Yeah. Like Aika and Dimitri's are technically the closest because they're like physically touching on the face all the time, like, you know, face to face. So that's pretty close.
Yeah, but I think that the season 3 alliance, they probably are in the best position collectively in the entire house, especially with Neta becoming the bigger target now. And they have this tight bond. It hasn't really been broken yet. A lot of people suspect it. A lot of people talk about like, oh, season 3 people, but nobody's talking about it as a big threat, and it really is a big threat because of how well connected they are.
I feel like that they are also well protected within the house. Like if they would have to be really unlucky, I feel like, for them to lose control of the game here and for all 3 of them to go out.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sort of talking about that. I wanted to ask this question because somebody really wanted me to ask this question to you guys, and they DM'd it to me. On your next pod, this is from Vanessa's Only. On your next podcast, and I actually hadn't considered this, you should bring up the question if you think that Kevin will pull a Cody from Big Brother 16 and take Bruno to the end and lose. Because I think Kevin would do that, and I don't see Kevin winning this game unless he cuts Bruno at some point. I don't think he has it in him, to be honest. So, Taran, I'm curious. Let's assume for the sake you can get to this point, and they're able to, rattle off a few HOHs, and Kevin, because he's famously said in talking to the live feeders that he would use the veto on Bruno at any time. He would save him. He's his ride or die. Will he go to the end with him and likely lose, or is he willing to cut him?
That is an interesting question. I don't think it's a matter of does he have it in him. I do think that if Kevin thought, if the option was presented to Kevin, you can take Bruno and maybe lose or probably lose, or you can take, Dylan or something and win. I think he will take Dylan because I think that the strength that Kevin does have is that he has a very good strategic mind for the game. He just can't see what's happening in the game.
He's a poker player.
Decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's definitely a scenario where he doesn't see that Bruno is going to beat him, and he takes Bruno because he can't see it. But I do think that if he's able to recognize it, he will cut Bruno. So I think a lot of it depends on who is he there with. And maybe it's the 3 of them. Maybe it's Bruno and Cindy, and he decides. Honestly, does he even win in that scenario? Like, does Kevin have a good shot at winning this game with the way that a lot of people view him right now?
Probably not right now. You know what I mean? Like, things would have to change. Like, he would have to, obviously there's a lot of games still left to be played, but no, I mean, you look at the people who would be on the jury and the people he would potentially be up there against, and it doesn't look appealing. I mean, Dylan's mad at him right now. Karen doesn't respect him. I mean, like, there's plenty of people who are closer to people he's aligned with than they are to him. So no, it's not an ideal situation, but it's so early in the game. It's very hard to, pin that down. If he gets to the end with Jackie, we're not even having this conversation.
I wanted to ask really quickly too. Neta said earlier on the feeds today that she learned from last time that she shouldn't take a goat to the end. And I guess my question is 2-pronged. A, do you think that was her problem last time? And B, do you think that she should not take a goat to the end this time? Like, should she go to the end with 2 heroes and just fight it out from there? Taran?
I think her problem was she didn't take 2 goats last time. She should have gone final 3 with Sabrina and Heather.
Well, right? I think she tried to, but
that would have been perfect. And you cut John. Like, that was her mistake. It wasn't taking a goat. John. It was getting rid of the big fish that, like, of your meat shield. She kept her meat shield too long. She used him, and then she needed to get rid of him at 6 or 5. She couldn't do it, and I think that's her problem more than anything. Because Heather would have taken her, and Sabrina would have taken her. So I think goats are good.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately with Neta in that season was that she never really had a great opportunity to cut John because he was winning so many competitions down the line. And there is legitimacy to what she's saying, where it's very risky to take a goat to the final three because, especially one as obvious as somebody like Sabrina, or maybe in this season it's somebody like Dylan, who it's very obvious that anybody will win sitting next to them. It's going to be very difficult to like convince somebody that they should take you. Like it's going to be very difficult, and that final competition is such a crapshoot that you can't just leave that up to chance. You need to be able to be certain that you have the person on lock, like Derek had with Cody. And it doesn't happen that often that you can have those people unlocked. So I do think I would prefer, if I was in Neta's situation, I would prefer to have two people who were threatening and trust that I, hopefully maintained my relationships enough in the house. But Neta's relationships in the house are very poor at this point.
I was going to say, I think Neta could be the GOAT.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, like 3 weeks ago, that Neta didn't need to worry. As long as she gets to the end, like who cares about the stupid twist? Who cares about the immunity? People respect her so much from Big Brother Canada 2 that if she gets to the end, just write her the check. But I don't really think that anymore. I feel like the house doesn't really like her very much, and I don't think that they would be willing to give her the money.
There's nobody in that house that really just likes. I mean, like maybe Kevin, maybe Bruno.
Right. The gamers.
There's like nobody that just like really just genuinely likes Neta a lot. Like there are people like Jackie and Cindy, I think, who are like still working with her, but they're not like in love with Neta. They're not like, I really like Neta. They're just like, yeah, she's on my side. Kevin and Bruno appreciate her rationality, and I think they enjoy spending time with her, but they're not like emotionally bonded by any means. And basically the rest of the house doesn't like her. They see her as negative, as bossy, as having an ego.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I feel like the house catching up with where I'm at. Like I was over Neta like 2 weeks ago, and I feel like the house is like the house is finally with me now.
I think that Neta needs to be recognizing that and looking at the fact that she does need probably two goats at the end. She needs to be able to drag like Karen and Dylan or Jackie and Dylan. I think Jackie and Dylan would be great for her because I think they would probably both take her and she would probably beat both of them just on respect alone rather than because neither of them are particularly liked either. So it's going to be a tough road for her, I think.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, it's a good discussion to have, I think, because, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, you really need two goats or none because one is the problem. And we see it in multiple seasons where it's like, Vanessa's a great player, but you'd have to be really good to convince Steve not to take Liz over you. And, Spencer's, or Andy's a really good player, but if like Spencer manages to win that last HOH, he's taking Gina Marie and saying, screw you, buddy. You know what I mean? So it is, it's very, very much true. I think that going to the end with one person who can't win is an appealing thing. But if you can't find two of them, I think, yeah, you're right. You're better off just going with people who you can kind of like predict where they're going to go at least, or maybe read, even if they're not necessarily like, have like someone with very small percentage chance to win.
Yes. All right. So one more question from Mr. Robot Taran. Who do you think came out on top during the conversations or arguments between Aika and Neta? And I really want, Brent, I want you to weigh in on this. I want you to be like the shade judge where like who came out on top in terms of like they really got their punches in and they sort of like won the argument in your mind.
Gosh, that's really hard to say because there's so much after stuff that happened. I'm going to go with Aika because I feel like she's the queen of shade at this point, and she's giving me everything that I need on the feeds right now. Neta can be a little bit inward with her shade, where Aika is very outward with her shade. Like, Neta's sort of like inwardly like bitching about stuff and is quiet about it and eye rolling, and that's not very interesting from a feed's point of view. Whereas Aika going around to different rooms, complaining about everything to everybody, practicing crying in the mirror, that was everything that I needed. So there was one point where Neta went to Bruno and bitched about it, and I love the fact that she was just like, that was the biggest waste of time ever. Like, I mean, she didn't even try to hide the fact that it was totally worthless for her. So I give Neta a B and I give Aika an A+.
There you go. Any thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, from an entertainment perspective, I think that's fair. But, from a strategic perspective, I do expect Neta to probably get the last laugh. But
I would
it'll be
probably agree
very
with you on
interesting
that.
to see. Tomorrow night is huge. When
Yeah, Aika's going to need a little bit of luck to have things go her way here. And by the
Yeah.
way, Aika has been currently saying that she really wants to throw up Neta and basically anybody. It's Neta and Jackie, Neta and Bruno, Neta and anybody. So is Neta's immunity up tomorrow? That's the other thing I want to know, because Evil Dick tweeted, when the hell is Neta's immunity up? And Arissa said, patience. Yeah. So
they'll tell us when they want to.
That is an interesting question, actually, though, because they didn't mention it at all. They haven't mentioned jury starting. They haven't mentioned Neta's immunity running up. So, like, are they really gonna have time in a double eviction episode to be like, oh, and by the way, jury started and Neta, you're now vulnerable? Like, is that what's gonna happen? Because it seems like they'd want to spend more time on it than just kind of like, okay, now, here we go. Right?
Yeah, I still think it's going to be 8-person jury with Canada's vote, because it just doesn't make sense that they would want to. I mean, really lose Neta in the double after she's been immune this whole time. It would just go by so fast. But Big Brother Canada has not been predictable this year. I really thought that they were going to do something to save Cass. They didn't. I thought they were going to do something to save Gary and change the rules. They didn't. So I'm going to give them their props, and they've been straight up. So we'll see what happens.
If I had to guess, my guess is that it's not up tomorrow, and that it's either maybe it's an 8-person jury.
Aika's like, basically, the way the house is talking right now, Neta's already vulnerable. Like they've all been talking about the fact that the people that don't like her, I'm gonna throw Neta up there. I'm gonna nominate her. Well, I'm like, she ain't available to you yet, unless you've heard something that I don't.
In which case I do think, Aika or Dre would probably, at this point at least, go for like Bruno and Jackie.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Great episode, guys. Great podcast. I had a lot of fun. We had a hashtag strategically veal, I think. I think that was a pretty good one.
By the way,
strategic veal, either way.
I just want to tell you, Alex, that I looked up the word chasmine, and I found the word chasmed, like past tense, as having chasms. So I'm thinking that chasmine has to be a word, but maybe we could get like Rob's fact checker to tell us.
That really sounds dirty. I chasmed. I chasmed all over this podcast. Oh my God, I'm sorry, Rob and Jordan.
But yeah, speaking of Jordan, he'll be back tomorrow night, right? Double eviction show with Jordan's Angels, as I dubbed them on the show.
Yes, it'll be Peely and Ashley.
Ashley and Melissa.
Yeah, Peely, Ashley Wood, and Melissa. So 3 beautiful women with JP. It's a tough life. I gotta say.
And I referenced that podcast that Kevin was on, where he talked about Mike Bell. Peely shows up in that podcast, and she was hilarious. So I expect this to be awesome. Yes, that is our episode. I am at Armstrong Taran on Twitter. Alex is at Alex Kidwell. Brent is at One Lucky Gay. And hashtag strategically veal. We'll see you next time.